as we go through some announcements. I'll start off with, I'm actually going to switch up the order here a little bit. Sorry if you're okay with it, as I catch her in mid-bite. Sorry about that. But kind of group a couple of relevant topics here together.
Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to announce that we have dates set for the Flag for Heroes install. It's going to be down at the riverfront again this year. We'll be putting them in Saturday at 9 a.m., October 25th. We're hoping to have possibly a little ceremony at the setup. We'll try and rope in some Boy Scouts or college kids if you know of any muscle that might be looking for some volunteer hours. I know a lot of the students and schools need that, so if you have any recommendations, I'd love to hear them. And then we'll leave those up. They need to be monitored, so it's a great time of year to go for a walk at the riverfront. We'll sign ups for that as well. Every couple of days go down, just keep our eye on them. Oh, there's a sign up QR code that actually is pointing to. Please see that. And then we'll be taking them down the week after Veterans Day, so November 15th, same thing, 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning. Last year we went and grabbed some beers after, just to kind of have some social time as well. So I look forward to having some sign-ups there. Also, the fundraising element is going strong. Beth is doing a great job getting sponsors, so we're always trying to raise some money for that. This year we're going to be partnering up with Food Bank. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And along those lines, so we've been talking about this fundraising campaign that's going on, and so now we're starting to really try to get some publicity out there, both to our members, but also out to the broader public. So you'll start to see some shares on social media, things like that. So what the ask of everybody is share that in your own social networks, share it in your personal networks. Next week, I'm going to send out a kind of just a sample text. Here's something you can just kind of copy and paste, and if you're so inclined, if you're so moved, to send out to your friends. Of course, you can customize it to your own, sort of language if you want, or just use what I've put together. So keep a lookout for that, and just help us spread the word so we can have some significant impact. With that, we have a couple of new member introductions. So, ladies, if you guys can come on up, please. So I'd like to welcome, we've had the joy of having some new members from the Delaware Community Foundation, and two of the representatives are here today. So we have Mary Beth and Sarah, and so there's also Yolanda and Chris, right? I had the pleasure actually meeting them over at their office there earlier this week. But of course, Delaware Community Foundation is no stranger to the Rotary Club. We've had a lot of members from there before. We've had Stu speak here. We've got Chris here who's going to be speaking here in a couple of weeks. So with that, I will just start off with, Mary Beth, who's on thank you very much. Who ironically was supposed to have a different speaker here today, who she happens to know. So that's fun. She's the Director of Advancement for the Delaware Community Foundation, and she's a seasoned nonprofit fundraising professional with over 15 years of experience. Throughout her career, she's raised over $100 million for regional nonprofit organizations. She's a chartered advisor in philanthropy, shout out, great program, and has earned the Certified Fundraising Executive designation as well. She's an expert in donor-advised funds, operational fundraising, planned giving, and grant writing. She lives in Wilmington with her husband Rich, their children Chris and Cameron, and their 3 rescued chihuahuas. Is it Chihuahua or Chihuahuas? Okay, sorry. She loves traveling, reading, voting with her family on the Chesapeake Bay, hiking, and bicycling. So sensing outside theme there. And all of a sudden I lost Sarah. Oh, that was right there in front of me. Sarah Henschen is the Executive Vice President and Chief of Staff at the Delaware Community Foundation, where she leads strategic initiatives, oversees grant making and community investments, and drives organizational alignment and culture. She's a lifelong Delawarean. She brings deep experience in philanthropy and public policy, previously holding leadership roles at the PI Network? Okay, so it's not PI, it's okay. And the Rotary Foundation. So she holds degrees from the University of Delaware and NYU. She lives in Hocassin with her 2 fantastic children. So, okay, well, a warm welcome, please, to these nice ladies. Book here, so we created this book 10 years ago, actually, which was our 100-year anniversary as a club. we're kind of running low on these. I've got one to share in the office.
Great.
But hopefully you'll learn a few things about the history of the club. We're so glad to have you aboard. Look forward to your contributions.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, next up is Mr. Novak. Mr. Mulch, please, sir.
Hello, everybody. I want to take some time to touch your heart. For all those physically and mentally healthy, children and adults, we thank your lucky stars. Those children and grandkids, nieces and nephews, to those of our friends and relatives who are different, I salute your effort, anguish, and concerns. It's these different children who need to play, see play, try play, even mess up their play. Why? When we encourage growth by going outside of a comfort zone, her, his, yours, we grow and learn social skills. I've been there, lived the day-to-day struggles. As others in this room know, you have to give the differently enabled everyday reality. So let's count the ways. 1, sign up for a couple hours as a helper. 2, sign up because bad luck didn't find you. 3, sign up because it's just right. Pay forward. Surprise yourself. So see you Saturday, October 11th, 9 to noon, with personal gloves to mulch at the Can-Do Playground. Good weather has been ordered by Amazon. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. So yeah, lots of great service opportunities coming up here next month, and it's always going to be nice weather out for these. So with that, I think we've went over all the announcements. So now, visiting Rotarians. Do we have any visiting Rotarians? Do we have any visiting guests?
Hello, I'm Lydia Sarson. It's lovely to meet you all. Thank you for having me here today. And I'm joining you from Healthy Foods for Healthy Kids.
Thank you for being here again. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. With that, I think that's also, now we've got our program chair. Please.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you guys want to come up while I'm doing the head table.
And this is working? Yes. Okay. Thanks, Mike. I'm Madeline Byard. Joining us at the head table is our secretary, Thorpe Michael, Ann Eichton, who's the former owner of the business you'll hear about today, Jeannie Griffin, and Lynn Jones. Thank you guys for joining us. And thank you for filling in for us, Carrie and Patrick. A little bit about them and some things you might not know about Carrie. So Patrick, welcome. He's the owner and director of Griswold Home Care, with 20 years experience in senior living in Bayada and other senior living communities. He has certifications as a dementia practitioner and a dementia support group facilitator. Thank you for being here. And special thanks to Carrie, who most of us know is our former president and district attorney governor. She's the owner and CEO of Griswold Home Care. She also founded a consulting firm, Gray Breakthroughs, which provides professional consulting and coaching. She's on a number of boards, including the theater company, and is part of the Rotary International Club creation team, which I think we can see why with the impact that our Impact Club and organizational membership is having. So thank you. She has 30 years experience in higher ed and nonprofits. You might not know that Carrie was one of my first bosses 25 years ago. Thank you. At Wilmington Renaissance. And Patrick and Carrie have a son and a dog, and they've seen almost all 50 states, and they have Alaska on their list for next year. So ask them about their travel plans. So thank you guys for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So thanks for being here to talk about the sandwich generation. Tell us a bit more about what that means and some of your experiences.
So for anyone who is potentially at an age where you are raising children and you also have aging parents, you are technically part of the sandwich generation. And in the United States, about 50% of adults are classified as part of the sandwich generation. And so for people that are, have careers, working full-time, raising kids, helping parents as they age, it can be very challenging. And so Patrick and I have both lived this experience in recent years. I think many of you know my father passed away about 18 months ago. But my mother also is still living, but also has dementia. And so I just spent 12 days living with her full-time in Vermont, which was the first time I'd had that experience since a significant decline in her health. And so it was very challenging. And so we're dealing with that, but then Patrick's family's had similar experiences.
Yeah,
Turn it up, push it up, there you go.
Okay. So my family, they're on the opposite end of the spectrum, so they're just at 70 years old. I have trouble finding out what my parents are doing or what their health concerns are. So while they do need the support, they often don't ask because they know that we're busy family, know that we're busy with our business and our son. So I kind of have to keep tabs on them and figure out what's going on. But most recently, my 95-year-old grandmother lived with my parents. So I saw my mother kind of going through the same process in this sandwich generation where she had, raised someone, but also now had a mother moving back into her home where they had to support physical and mental decline.
Thank you for sharing that. And maybe tell us some about the experiences you see families, that you're serving and yourselves facing, while trying to balance all of these different priorities.
Yeah, well, I think that, we get phone calls with our business all the time hearing about the need. What we're seeing now are, out of the pandemic, a lot of families working from home, moving loved ones in, and not able to focus on their work throughout the day because the loved one needs care. So we are going into homes where people are there, but there are other responsibilities, whether it be leaving the home to a kid's soccer game or attend something, business meeting. We're in there with multiple generations every day.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think one of the things that we're seeing too is, the adult children that are helping their parents, like Patrick similarly said, are dealing with parents who aren't quite ready to let go of the reins of control, right, and autonomy and independence, and that's perfectly understandable. And so we provide a lot of counsel around that, formally and informally. We have friends that are like, help, I got a, issue, what do I do? And so I think we just, we see a lot of ways in which adult children can approach this, kind of conversation that'll help their parents keep their independence, but also prepare them and set them up for success going forward as a family.
And what about amongst the adult children, the siblings who then have to share the burden, and how do you see that playing out? What advice do you have?
I'd like to formally thank my two sisters for being amazing support systems. They're an hour and 7 hours away, so my sister that's an hour away will sometimes come up and handle doctor's appointments if I need her to. But generally, that's kind of a unique situation where oftentimes, one sibling may be kind of the person who's designated as the lead for the siblings to have the conversations or to handle the doctor's appointments or things like that. But then when big decisions need to be made, it's not easy, right? It's not easy to kind of get everybody on the same page in terms of, how you want to move forward for your parents or parent or loved one. It could be an aunt, an uncle, somebody else, right? In terms of somebody that you're trying to help make some decisions. And so that can be really challenging.
I think it's hard for the child who lives far away because they have their own responsibilities, right? So they get tied up and wrapped up in the day-to-day, but they do feel guilt for being so far away and not being able to help. So I think that explaining to them ways in which they can help. I've recently had a family, and the daughter who was in New York said, I know my place. Financially, she handled all the finances from New York. She also was able to support the parents who were running out of funds. So, she said, this is my place. Whereas my sister here in Middletown can support my parents on a day-to-day basis when their caregiver's not in home.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe talk through some of those emotional pressures that caregivers face, whether they are the one here every day or living with the parent or farther away.
I think it's a struggle of, wanting to make sure that you're doing making the best decisions or helping your parent make the best decisions, but also, kind of pushing them in a direction they need to go. And that's a really gentle conversation often, but it also can be that you have to just rip the Band-Aid off and have the hard conversation, right? And whether that can be about finances and mom, dad, I don't know what you have going on financially, right? Do you have a long-term care policy? Have you saved enough in your retirement investment accounts to handle the cost of what care is going to be down the road? Having those conversations earlier than later is always what we recommend, because we know when it's an emergency situation, you don't want to be caught unaware in terms of what your parents have access to. And for anyone in the room who's of an age where their children might be kind of wondering, like, what's going to happen for mom and dad? What are your plans? What would you like to see? What would life look like ideally for you? Do you want to stay in your home? Do you want to go into a continuing care community or an assisted living? Having those conversations now before it's an emergency can be really important.
Yeah, definitely have those conversations, but also write it down. There are journals, you can buy it at Amazon. Who said Amazon earlier? Yeah, there are journals on Amazon where everything can be documented, so it has specific tabs for legal, financial, all the areas that you need to know. So make sure that your advisors, your attorney information is written down and easily accessible in a place where your children know.
So thinking about somebody who might be thinking about home care and bringing someone into the home, what advice do you have for families who are thinking about that approach?
Yeah, I would say sit down and have the conversations, understand what your parent wants as well. The conversation really should be with the client and someone who is maybe not open to the idea of having care, but relate to them. So it's social, it's physical, mental, social. You can match a caregiver who is a great fit. Oftentimes we ask about past because we are dealing with someone with memory loss. So we talk about what hobbies have been given up because they're not physically able to support themselves in doing tennis or something else at this point. So I think just making sure that it's a perfect match and making sure that they're recognizing what their daily routine looks like. So we make sure that we're covering the hours where it's most needed.
I think the other thing to think about too is, you can do research on home care agencies, you can have conversations with home care agencies, a year before you're ready to have somebody come in and care for you, right? And so, as Patrick and our team will do, they'll go out and do a home visit and look at the safety in the home and make recommendations for adaptations that can be made now that will then prepare them for, living as long as possible in their home.
So you're doing everything from coming in a few hours and helping with medications to round the clock, or give us a range, a sense of
Yeah, absolutely. So we found kind of a sweet spot with our caregivers, and they want consistency, just like our clients do. So we have a set minimum number of hours that we do require, only because we find that the needs that our clients have do take time. So when someone says, well, I just need somebody for an hour because I need safety supervision when I get in the shower. Well, that's probably true, but it probably can be expanded upon in that they need support getting out of the shower with dressing or other activities of daily living. So, we set that minimum for the consistency, but we always talk to the client about what their true need is and what we want to focus on, but also thinking about what their disease process is, if there's a significant condition that we need to worry about as well.
And, thinking about folks, that I've heard about, how do you help people overcome that I don't want someone in my home, or paranoia about what the person in my home might be doing? How do you build that relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. So first and foremost, I mean, we always start off with our marketing team making a presentation talking about our company and our company's history, including Ann here. So all the way back to Jean Griswold, who founded the company many, many years ago in Philadelphia. So, you know, trying to build that rapport with them, but then also talking about things that you need to look for. And in our marketing materials, we do include our state license, which we're very proud of. We are seeing an increase in unlicensed agencies popping up around the state, so we make sure that we're trying to educate from a home care association standpoint here in Delaware. We are educating the importance of licensure and what that actually means. So you know who's coming into your house, you know you're working with an insured agency. You know, we build that trust right from the start, and then we also we'll do introductions with the caregiver. So oftentimes we can go out to a rehab setting if somebody's in a rehab before they discharge home, learn about home exercise programs, make an introduction to the caregiver for 2 hours so they can have conversation, and then start services when it's needed.
And any other advice about families when you're choosing an agency, what to think about, when is it time to bring someone in?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, the sooner the better that you can think about these things and have these conversations among your family, but then also reach out and do some, research on the different agencies in your area, what they can provide. We have everything from hourly caregivers to live-in caregivers. So we actually have caregivers who live around the clock in the home with some of our clients. And it depends on what the need is and what the comfort level is, right? And just, you can register, like for us with Griswold, we say to folks, you can register with us and not start services for a year or 2 years down the road, but we have your information, we're all set to go when it is time to start. We'll be out of the gate very quickly. And we can, if it's an emergency situation, we can start care, within 24 hours or sometimes less, just depending on, who we have available as caregivers. But that's not the ideal situation. Being in an emergency situation is not ideal. It can, be handled and without any issue.
Just think about, we hear about healthcare robots and, home aid people. Like, tell us about technology. How is that already impacting the field? How do you see it impacting the field in the future?
Absolutely. Well, we never see caregivers being replaced completely. However, we want to stay ahead and current with the times, because oftentimes someone can't afford 24-hour care. If a family member is out of the area, they often worry about what's going on when a caregiver's not in the home. So we have currently been researching several virtual caregiving opportunities. And we've narrowed our search down to one organization that we're going to invest in and add this as an added service to all of our clients. So presenting to them situations where, when we're not in the home, when you're not here visiting, what happens? And we can learn exactly what happens just from something that looks like an alarm system. It's a motion and heat sensor that goes into the home and will predict their baseline of their sleep patterns, how many hours a day they sleep, what time they typically wake up and are in the kitchen for breakfast. And if that changes, then we will alert the families or our office to, we're seeing a change, this is happening. A pilot recently caught a UTI early on in a client because of the frequency and the trips to the bathroom. So, the door tag on the bathroom was opening 20 times instead of 8 times a day, whatever it may be. So there's a lot of different things like that out there, but we have really done our research and found that we want a non-invasive, we're not going to call it AI technology because that scares everyone, but it is a virtual caregiving opportunity, and it will just be an added service to what we offer.
I think the other thing that's critical about this is that it will be able to detect a fall. And so if we are not there with our caregivers at that time and there's a fall that occurs, the system would alert the trusted circle of people who that person has indicated should be called. So whether it's a child or our office or 911, we'll be able to make that call and send help out to that individual. And I think that's really critical. The other thing is that it's smart enough technology that it can tell the difference between people. So if there's more than one person living in the home, it would be able to tell the difference. If there's a dog or a cat or, flowers, balloons, something that, you know, are kind of waving in the wind in that home, it will be able to tell the difference between those things and not create false alerts, which will be good.
The other benefit for all the medical professionals in the room, we all know when a fall happens, everyone always tries to crawl to the couch and push themselves up or whatever they can grab onto. This system will actually use a stick figure to show us how the fall happened, which side the person fell on, whether it was a hip or a knee or, you know, their head hitting the floor. So it's kind of unique in that way, because we always try, in the senior living industry, we always try to recreate a fall, but we don't necessarily know what happened. So I'm looking at Rose, because I know Rose and I spent several years in the assisted livings together, and you know, we constantly are trying to think about, okay, let's recreate what could have happened in this situation, and this new technology will actually do that for us.
Do you see families, you know, you think about the commercials with the button that people would wear around their neck, but are people using like Alexa, like call something, or show me this, Alexa show, or are there other things people are using kind of on their own?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Alexa, we're using it for everything right now. We use it for our dogs, so. But yeah, absolutely. The technologies can be integrated with Alexa systems. So we are seeing that exercise reminders, drinking water reminders are used on Alexa a lot. So it not only prompts our caregivers and the client, but you know, when our caregivers aren't there, it still can be engaged.
Yeah.
Medicine reminders.
Yeah.
Medicine reminders as
Right.
well. Yeah.
Thank you. What other resources do you recommend for people in the sandwich generation or who are caregiving?
I think we, you know, as an office, we've come up with a list of resources locally and nationally, so people can better understand what's going on with their loved one, to support them from a stress standpoint, from a self-care standpoint. We know it's a stressful situation when you're multi-generation and being pulled in multiple different directions. So we do have a list of resources as people call in and are asking for specific situations. If it's not something that we can handle or think it's appropriate for us to handle, we do try to put them in contact with the best resource for them.
You know, I think it's an inclination of human nature, right, to go to Google and ask Dr. Google. But I would caution, say, Google is now using an AI kind of automated system where it'll give you the AI answer at the top of the page. When you look at that, there's a little link symbol, and that link then tells you where the source was for that information. So when you're looking at answers in Google, right, you know, help for my parent for Alzheimer's or dementia or things like that, make sure that you're seeing reputable resources and sources in those answers. Go to the disease website. So if it's Parkinson's, go to the Parkinson's website. If it's Alzheimer's or dementia, you know, go to the Alzheimer's Association. So they have a ton of resources and information for disease-specific things. Generally for, you know, caregiving and self-care and things like that, there's a lot of books out there, there's a lot of resources. There are also support groups locally for people that are caregivers that are helping, you know, older individuals with their care. And I think having that network and that support group of people that really understand what you're going through, if you don't have it within your family, is really important for someone to think about.
Thank you. Well, maybe before we take questions from the group, see if you have any final sort of words of wisdom or anything you didn't get to say that you wanted to make sure you did.
I don't think so.
Yeah, no, we covered everything. Yeah.
You covered a lot between your personal experience, professional experience.
So there is something here I will say.
Okay.
So for anyone who's of an age where, you know, children may start getting involved soon or someone else may start getting involved soon, just having all of your documentation buttoned up and making sure if you are in that sandwich generation that your parent does as well, whether it's power of attorney, their will, their estate, their advance directive for their health. You want to know all those things. If you are the executor of the will, you want to have all of those documents so that you, you know, don't have to go hunting for them later, or, you know exactly what your parents' wishes are.
The other advice I've gotten is, you know, make sure you know the password to the phone and the Apple ID and the computer and
The bank. Yeah. Yeah, all those things.
Thank you. All right, what questions does everybody else have?
He's going to take your microphone.
make sure you write this down. Do you guys do respite care or have any resources for, let's say someone just has a hip surgery, they just need a short period of time, doesn't need to be, a long-term commitment, and then also resources if they want to go into facilities for respite?
Absolutely. So we have, we definitely do respite care and support clients. I think, Madeline, you mentioned we do, I started off telling you about our minimum care, but we do offer a program kind of unique in the area. There's only about 3 companies still offering this style, but it's a live-in caregiver. So they actually physically move into your home. They are required to have sleep, but that's a perfect way to cover reduce the cost because the caregiver does have sleep hours, but also make sure that somebody's there that's reliable.
Thank you both for your presentation. So lots of great information. I wondered if you could just touch on the financial side. Kind of what's covered, what's not covered. Any maybe advice about that as well.
Yeah, because we do offer non-medical care, it is not covered by any Medicare. So we are providing services for Medicaid clients, veterans. So there are veteran hours approved that are authorized by the VA for caregiving. So we support a lot of veterans in the community. And we also receive long-term care coverage. So if you have a long-term care insurance policy, make sure that it has home care coverage. So, and then obviously private pay costs. So.
Hi, I'm curious about the technology that you were speaking about earlier. Does it have a name? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Not quite ready to release the name yet. So we, not trying to keep it secret, but because we have been researching for about a year with 6 different platforms, we are piloting, and probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks, piloting with 3 different clients to make sure that it is the right one. But I think the biggest thing that we found is most of our clients do not want to be watched and they don't want to be recorded. So it is not an audio-visual technology. So kind of going back to the Google cameras and the Alexas that are constantly listening to us, even though we know that, our clients are very fearful that something like that happens. So that's why we're not really calling it AI, just more of a virtual caregiver.
I think the other unique thing about the platform that we're hopefully piloting and choosing is that it keeps all of your data, your private data. It's not being shared across a network. Like you actually have to have your own internet in your home or in your assisted living apartment in order to have this platform, in your home, because they want your data to be your data.
I thank you both so much for this, because when the topic came up, I was like, oh, that's really right. So one thing I wanted to comment on is communication clearly is the biggest thing. My sister and I had started having conversations 10, 15 years ago, well before anything was needed, because we knew my mother's situation well enough that we could predict. But in that, there's still things that pop up that you cannot predict, things that you don't know, that you sort of have to discover, figure out as you go along. Thankfully, most people in your field, incredibly empathetic, helpful people, so thank you. My question to you is that if a family comes to you a year or 2 in advance of a perceived need, and they sit down with you, do you offer, it sounds like sort of like a consultation, if ultimately they cannot afford you, you look at the whole picture and they cannot afford you, do you still sort of help them in the sense of giving them the resources and pointing them in the right direction? Because that's a lot, that's so helpful.
Absolutely. I mean, you're not in this industry if you didn't care, right? Or if you are, you're in the wrong spot. So we are a true resource for everybody's need. So oftentimes we get calls from people that just don't know where to turn, what to do next. So like I said, we can be a resource and offer that to anybody and just kind of ease their mind with whatever question they have. Yeah.
I want to thank you both for being here, because if you weren't here, it means I would be here. I wouldn't be here.
Well, we wouldn't be here without you.
To be sweet. So just kind of a public comment, because September 30th will be 3 years that I sold Griswold, and I know that I clearly sold to the right people, and that Carrie and Carrie are doing a phenomenal job. So I'm very proud that they're here today. And so thank you very much. I do want to add one thing to just emphasize it. If you wait until an emergency, your options change. I always believe that education is power, and you cannot make a decision unless you have education. So whether it's assisted living, go look at 10 places and, tell your kid, don't send me there, here's my folders, I would go to these 3. Or, any other thing that you're looking at in terms of care and meeting with an agency now. How many times do we get a call, somebody's at Christiana Hospital, they're going home in an hour, you haven't done the paperwork. Well, you've got state regulations, right? And so it's much easier to get registered now. And at least your kids know what you're doing. So, without education, you can't make a decision. If you make a decision when you're in the middle of an emergency, just know the reality, you don't have the same options anymore.
Well, and just to expound on that, and too, we get a lot of calls like that, so we do answer the phone 24 hours a day. Thankfully, we have a great on-call team that is an extension of our staff. But ultimately, those calls come directly to me. Many times a Friday night at 10:30, and that's okay. One of the things that I wanted to add to Ann's comment was pushing back on the social workers at the hospital, because oftentimes there is a need from a Medicare standpoint to accept somebody but not admit somebody. So you do have the ability, if it's not a safe discharge, to go ahead and push back if you have not lined up home care or someone to be in your home. I mean, you can say that. It's not safe for me to go home. I'll end up right back here. So last week I had a client go back to the hospital 4 times because of her condition. She was going to the ER. They were sending her home before she was admitted. Back to the ER, back and forth. So you can really push back on that case manager that's in the hospital and say, it is not safe for me to go home. I'm alone. I haven't set anything up, and they will provide you the resources in the hospital to reach out to us or any other agency in the state.
One more quick question.
Thank you guys for taking care of my brother. My brother had RSV. If you haven't had the shot of RSV, please get the vaccine. It's a horrible, horrible disease. Probably out for about a year. Recovered very much. Griswold was fantastic in taking care of him. He always praises the people that you brought, you sent there. So I think a little advertisement.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for trusting us with this care.
Thank you very much. And let me just also echo, what the doctor said. They're there to help, and I can personally attest to that. I had my own sandwich moment a couple of years ago, and it kind of came out of nowhere and took my family by surprise. And I called up Carrie in a panic. I don't know what to do. And the 2 of them were, let's jump on a call together, let's help you out. And it was just so, it was incredible. And they're just super generous people at the time. I think you guys all know that, but thank you. Yeah, thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And with that, as you probably that was as an appreciation for being here, as an expression of our appreciation. We're going to put a book in your name in one of our partner schools that we work with, that we fund in the early education space. So thanks again for being here. Next week, as a reminder, we are off next week, the last week of the month. We're off from the hotel, but we are going to try something. I've mentioned this before, so we're going to try what I've come up with. And if someone has a better name, I'm not wed to this, but I'm playing bonus Rotary. So it's going to be a virtual meeting, like back in the COVID days, but it's going to be because we can. So anyway, we'll have some announcements about that in the newsletter with the link. We're going to have a really interesting speaker talking about melanoma prevention. That's not going to take up the whole time. We're trying to cook up a few other fun ideas for the meeting, but hopefully you can join in for that. And Sheila can actually be leading that because I'm going to be out of town at a conference. With that, if your schedule permits, stay and enjoy the coffee, the macaroons, and additional fellowship. Until we see each other again, take care of yourself, and if you can, someone else do.